You're listening to The Real Deal Conversations, a podcast designed to encourage, inspire, and equip you by sharing real stories and meaningful conversations that bring real life to the surface. I'm your host, Megan Deal. Let's dive in. Today, I am with Tifini Roberts. Tifini Roberts is local. She's from Nixa. She has been a psychologist. Guys, I keep getting it confused. Psychologist. I was right the first time. For 20 years. She's no longer practicing, but she is still bringing all of her knowledge to the table today. And if you recognize the last name Roberts, her husband is Josh Roberts, who is one of the school board, president of Nixa School Board, actually. So anyway, Tifini, thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Yes. So I am very excited. When I met Tifini, I just really enjoyed talking with her and just asked her, hey, I want to have a conversation for women. I want to have a conversation for women who are in changing seasons, who are struggling with self-worth, who are dealing with burnout, the grind, stay-at-home moms, whether you're a working mom. I just want to have a conversation to help them feel seen, connected, and empowered. And so Tifini and I have had a couple coffees, and I hope that is what happens for you ladies today. So, Tifini, okay, some of the things that we talked about, one of the things is rediscovering yourself in different seasons. We're always growing, we're always changing, different seasons come. What, for women, how do you feel like they can navigate that? Like that can feel hard and lonely.
Yes, it can. I think it involves multiple aspects. Mm-hmm. I don't think you can successfully move into the next season of your life until you really kind of take inventory of where you're at, because it involves some grief and some loss too. When I left my practice and I moved into kind of the unknown, because it was 5 years ago and COVID hit, and that was not a part of my long-term plan. I had to really think about, what was I giving up? What am I losing? Empty nesting, we're also kind of at that point. And, in order to embrace what's next for you, you also have to kind of acknowledge and grieve the things that isn't for you anymore, or isn't for you in the same way that it was before. So I think that's important. And then I think what's essential is to figure out and do a reassessment of where do you find meaning and purpose now? Yeah. Because it may be a little bit different than where it was before.
And do you think changing in seasons, something that I have noticed is letting go of some of the things I have grown out of?
Yes.
And it's like that in between of, okay, I'm not there anymore, whether it's in a personal healing or a next, whatever, I'm not there anymore. And then being in the new growth phase, maybe a little more confident in some things, a little more secure in some things. And sometimes I talk as if I'm still in the old me.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And I'm like, wait a minute, I just said that, but that isn't me anymore.
Right.
And it's like this.
And that's okay. Yeah, we do. We grow and we change. And sometimes we forget to acknowledge that. Yeah. And sometimes it's kind of scary. It's that wasn't. And, that affects our relationships a lot too, because it's sometimes we grow out of things and we're growing into something new. Yeah. And it's kind of a hard balance to navigate. Yeah. That was true about us, but this is true about us too.
Yeah. Yeah. And okay, so what would you say? I'll use a personal example. So, and I do this too often, where I talk as if things are real time, and they're not always real time. It's just the way that I talk. But what would you say, if somebody they've stepped into a new growth phase, they're not insecure in that one way anymore. They're more bold, they're more courageous, they're not as soft and I don't know, just afraid of conflict, all the things, Yes. I may be talking about me, guys. But,
me too.
And so sometimes it is everybody knows me as this for so long. I'm growing, though. I'm growing out of that. And sometimes I get worried, okay, are people going to get what are people going to think about that?
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying? Like, can you help me put some words to that? Like,
I do.
What am I trying to say, Tiffany? Help me out here.
I do. It's hard to be different and to be growing when you're in the same environment.
Yes.
And people...
It's surrounded by the same people.
Expect the same things of you. And not only that, but like they want the same things from us, you know? Because we're the ones that are moving in a different direction and not them.
Yeah.
And change disrupts everything.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean it's not worth doing, but yeah, I mean, when we have major changes in who we are and the way that we're growing, sometimes people respond negatively to that.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, they might call us fake, or they might, you know, just think that you think you're too good for me, or, well, that's not the you I know, you know.
Yeah.
You get a lot of lack.
Yeah. You know what what I have heard before, whenever I am direct, whenever I'm straightforward, whenever I'm setting a boundary.
Good.
Yes, thank you. I used to not set boundaries because I didn't want to hurt the other person.
Yes.
The other person can hurt me, but I didn't want to hurt them.
Yes.
So I wouldn't set the boundary.
Isn't that great how we're socialized? Like, only worry about what other people want from us and making them happy. You know, don't think about what it's doing to you.
And the response was, well, you must not be a Christian.
Yes.
Or like one thing I heard was, you're all out there, you're talking about your faith and all the Christian, but you did this. You must obviously, well, and it's that, okay, so wait, how do I navigate this? Because you can be a Christian, you can be a follower of Jesus, and still set a boundary and not let people treat you terribly.
And you should.
Yeah.
You absolutely should.
But
those two things are not mutually exclusive.
And it's so terrible how people go, and it's very manipulative.
Yes.
It's very manipulative.
They're wanting you to do what they want you to do. And you have in the past.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's, you know, it's like a toddler. When you try to train them out of something, if you've given into it several times, like, it's going to take several trials before they realize, listen, I'm not going to get what I want.
Yeah.
And it's easier for them to bring you back down than it is for them to change, because they may not want to, which is fine.
Yep. But at the same time, I've come to the realization that, okay, so yes, that hurt. Yeah. Yes, that stung a little bit.
Yeah.
But the boundary still stays.
Yeah.
And I'm here. Here's the thing. Here is the Christ-like thing of me. I'm here when you're ready to find a different way to engage with me that isn't hurtful.
Yes.
I'm not going to cut you out. I'm not going to say, no, you can't. But until you can be healthy, I have to have a boundary.
Absolutely.
And that, you know what I'm saying? And so I guess I say all of that to say, when we're rediscovering ourselves in different seasons, when we are growing, we're stepping into our new us, and we're healing, and that inner child within us is healing. How would you say, for females who are maybe going to have to make some decisions with the friend group they have?
Yeah.
So how would you encourage them through that? How would you encourage them in going, because I had to do that. I had some friend groups that were keeping me stuck, and I loved them dearly.
Yeah,
I still love them, but I had to step away because that was going to hinder my growth.
Yeah. And
all it was going to do was fuel the thing that needed to be healed, not push what needed to be healed into a healing state. And so what would you say to women who are recognizing that they're in that stage of recognition, and that's scary too? Okay, well, now I have to find people who are for me. And that's like speed dating. It sucks.
Oh, it's so hard as an adult.
Yeah. So how would you encourage women who are navigating a shift in identity for growth, and needing to change their surroundings?
I mean, we become more like who we are around. And, we try to be a light, but we can also be brought down. And sometimes we just need to set those boundaries. And that's part of where, like, the loss and the grief comes in, because we love them. But it's not good for us in the same way anymore. And we could change our relationship, but do they want to? Like, do they want it to be different? Or is it easier for them to vilify us or to walk away? Or so, I mean, I think you have to acknowledge, like, that hurts. And then you have to just you have to be honest, and you have to do it with as much love and kindness and grace as you can. And you have to remember that how successful you were at that, if you did it right or wrong, you can't determine that based on how they respond to you.
Yeah.
Because they're not going to want to hear it. It's hurtful to them. And people that are hurt, they lash out. They drag us down instead of, growing.
Yeah. And what would you say, how what tools or practical tools or conversations, what are some things that you would give to those women and how to address that? Because we don't want to just go, oh, we'll just ghost them, You
don't want to ghost them.
Yeah.
I mean, you might kind of want to ghost them, but we don't want to ghost them. That's not who we're growing into, right? We want to avoid it. Still don't.
Yes.
Maybe we're better at conflict as we grow, but we don't want it, especially with people that we care deeply about. I think a good rule of thumb is to write it out. Organize your thoughts about it, because it's really easy to be really nervous, to be really in the moment, to kind of be hurt and defensive yourself about what you're having to say and setting a boundary. So I tell people, just write it out. Write a letter. Don't filter it. Just it doesn't have to be coherent, really. Just throw everything out that is in your mind about this, all your hurts, what you're moving towards, and then you're going to edit this. So just write it all out, dump it all out, see what's there, and then give it a little bit. Pray about it, sit with it for a while, read it back, and you're going to be like, okay, that's a lot, that's too much, that's not what's really important. This is really what I want to say. And you can kind of streamline it down, and you have bullet points of the things you want them to hear, because they may shut you out pretty quick. So, how do you want to approach this? Of course you want to start with, I love you. I still love you. I care about, I love our friendship, but you've got to be honest and you've got to be ready to be firm, but do it with as much love and as much grace as you possibly can, because all we can do is the best that we can do in the moment. Other people's responses don't always tell us if we did that right or wrong. Women are always like, well, maybe I said it wrong, or maybe I should have, and I'm just like, they didn't want to hear it. Right. They just didn't want to hear it.
Right.
You just have to do the best you can do.
What's so interesting is I always go to again, like I said earlier, if I say this, it's going to be so uncomfortable. They're going to be uncomfortable. And really, I think if I reflect and I really get down to the root of it, if I'm being very honest and real with everybody, I think I'm honestly avoiding me being uncomfortable.
Yeah, it is uncomfortable. It feels weird to say different things to people that have known us forever. I mean, we mean it, but as we're growing into these, people that we're becoming, we're still a little insecure about it. And it sounds kind of funny the first few times we say it, especially to these people that have really only known this one part of us.
Yeah. And I think too, it's I don't want them to be uncomfortable. Well, I think really I don't want them to be uncomfortable, because then that makes me uncomfortable.
Oh, absolutely.
And it comes down to it always comes back when you really get to the middle of the onion, you peel it all back, it comes down to a selfish reason. I don't want them to be uncomfortable because I don't want to be uncomfortable. So if I make them uncomfortable, then I have to sit in this, and I just want everything to feel hunky-dory.
Yes,
and
it's self-protection.
Yes.
But we don't move anywhere when we do that.
Or there's two things too. There's also what I have experienced or felt is wanting, not personally for me to be uncomfortable, but I know that if this person's uncomfortable, the can of worms is going to, you know what I mean? And no matter how many times you put a boundary up, it's just going to keep coming. And so there's, it's, I don't know. And I think too, if you're hey, who are we necessarily talking about? I'm really talking with Tifini about friendships, family relationships, when it's just no longer healthy. And it doesn't even have to be anything extreme. It can be somebody who's constantly gossiping and you keep getting pulled into it because
Gossip,
what else am I?
Chronic negativity. It's contagious.
Yes. And it's, people who don't have the ability to just sit in silence and be okay with it
Yeah.
tend to be the ones who start pulling for something to talk about.
Yes.
And so kind of growing out of, I don't want to gossip anymore. I don't want to feel bad anymore about conversating and all the things. That can be something that you're growing out of.
Yeah.
And that can be a conversation where you have to say to that friend, I don't want to have these kind of conversations anymore. I don't think they're beneficial. And that friend either has the choice to grow out of it with you, or maybe you're going to find out that wasn't
right.
the greatest friend in the first place if that was the basis of your friendship.
Yeah. And that's tough to hear, as the other person. That's tough to hear because you're just like saying like, I don't want to do this.
Yeah.
And basically you're making them feel like, oh, well, maybe I shouldn't do this. Maybe I have to change. And a lot of people's responses come out of that anxiety.
Yeah.
And, we have to learn to tolerate things being a little bit disrupted.
Yeah.
People being uncomfortable. Us, being like, oh, that didn't feel great.
Yeah.
I wish I didn't have to do that.
Yeah.
Like you can't avoid it. If you avoid it, you go right back to where you started.
Yeah.
You've got to be able to grow through it. And there's tough stuff in that we have to learn to sit with and to accept, you know? We can only make changes for ourselves.
Yep. That is so true. That is so true. And I think once we realize that, we have no control over anybody but ourselves.
Yes.
It's a little bit of, it's kind of freeing.
Yeah. It's good news, bad news.
Yeah.
As someone who would love to control everything,
Mm-hmm.
But the good news, bad news is we can't, we never could.
Yeah.
We think that we try to, but we got to let it go.
Yeah. Yeah.
We can only do what we can do.
Yes, I'm with you. And okay, so we have kind of talked about changing seasons, changing into a new stage with growth. What about going into a shift in identity, shift in stage for career, somebody stepping out of a career? What did that look like for you?
It was hard because I felt like a shift needed to happen, but I didn't have clarity about what was next. And I don't love change.
Yeah.
So I stayed and I stayed and I kept waiting for the opportunity. And finally I'm like, you know what? Like, I love what I did. I still love it. I still have dreams about doing it. So it wasn't that. It was just like, I felt like there was something else I was meant to do. And then one day it kind of dawned on me like, oh, I'm going to have to take a leap of faith. I'm going to have to finally stop and just see where it leads me. And that's not something that I like to do.
Yeah.
I'm a planner. I like to know where things are headed. I mean, I had a lot of identity tied up in that. I'm just like, what am I going to do? And then COVID hit.
Yeah.
And we were moving stuff out of my office as they were like talking about needing papers to drive out on the road. So it's like, okay, well, thank you, God. That was pretty good timing.
Yeah.
Never had to learn how to do all the telehealth stuff, take all of those continuing education. So, and I was just kind of like in the season of like just waiting and waiting. And I had a really good Christian friend and she's like, maybe that is what your season is right now. Maybe you're resting. Maybe you're waiting. Maybe this is exactly what it's meant to be. And so I worked on being in that place and just being open and available. And it was hard. And, some of my friends that our main connection was through what we do, like suffered.
Yeah.
They acted very strange. I didn't see it coming. I was just like, what? I'm still the same person, right? Like we can still talk about those things. Like, but it was just kind of a weird feeling like I was abandoning them, So, I mean, it did change a lot of things. And I had to really sit down and figure out like, okay, if nothing's going to fall in my lap right now, maybe I need to like do some work and figure out like, what do I want this to look like? What's important to me? And try to really redefine for myself, like ask myself questions like, what brings me joy? When do I feel most alive? Like, what are the things that I do that I absolutely love and want to fill my time with? And like, what are the themes of these things? So for me, I came up with like 3 things.
Okay.
And it was nurture, experience, and create. Like everything that brings me the most joy falls in one of those categories. And they're very broad. Like there's very different things that happen, but I know I need to be able to do those 3 things in order to like fulfill my potential
Yeah.
and to have the kind of energy and the power that I want to have, you know, moving forward. So that's kind of what I based it on. And then I used that as a framework of, you know, it's really easy for your time to fill up when you're in this place of like, I don't know, I don't have a lot of structure to this. And I didn't want to say yes to everything.
Yeah.
And so I used that as a framework, those 3 things, to just make sure I have enough of that stuff in my life. And, you know, when it was getting kind of busy and kind of full, to kind of maybe push away and say no to some of the things that didn't really meet those criteria.
I really like how you said how you kind of like you built that framework. Because I am in that, like we've talked about this, like I left Big Bro because I knew that I needed to rest so that I can manage everything happening in my life, right?
Yes.
But my problem is I keep wanting to pick stuff up.
Yes.
I do.
Oh, and there'll be more things than,
Yes.
I mean, yeah, your time will be absolutely filled.
Yes. But that's the thing is like...
But not in a meaningful way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. So I love that framework of like, wait, no, because I get bored. I get bored and then I see opportunity and I'm like, ooh, I could do that. And then before you know it, like you just said, I'm filled completely back up again. And then I'm upset and stressed and burnt out. I really like that framework.
Yeah. And it could be goals. I mean, but those are just the things that fill me up.
Yeah.
You know?
And did that help you? Like when you wanted to pick stuff up again?
Yes.
Did you? Okay. And so like sticking to that helped you go kind of, okay, walk me through that because I am 100% listening as a listener right now with what you're saying. So when you wanted to pick stuff up again, what did you do so that you didn't pick the stuff up again?
Well, I knew I was very capable of doing that. You know, we are socialized to say yes and to make people happy and to not say no. So even if I knew I didn't really want to, I knew I was going to be really tempted. And I do want to be helpful and I do want to do things, and not everything falls into those categories, but I just try to keep that balance. So, I mean, I think even understanding what those were for me helped me understand why I love the things that I love. And so, you know, when something would come up, I got really, really stingy with my time. You know, I'm moving back out of that, thankfully, because I went to the opposite extreme because I knew that was a risk. And I didn't want to just waste, you know, potential or time or purpose on just stuff, you know. So I just ran everything through that framework. You know, when something would come, I would think, you know, does it fall into any of those categories? Yes or no. If it did, then that was an easy yes for me. If it didn't, I had to figure out, like, you know, is it important? How much time is it going to take up? Is it going to really allow me enough time, you know, to keep doing these things that I do feel I'm gifted to do? You know, what are my gifts at this point? You know, because that's what I want to use. So anytime an opportunity came up, I would just say, does it meet any of these categories? If not, is it important enough for me? And can I set limits and boundaries around it so that it doesn't take over? And with people as well. I mean, when you're freed up, you know, there's a lot of things people could use some help with, you know, and I love to be helpful, but I also didn't want my whole time, you know, to just be filled with little tasks.
Because we're not helpful if we're doing it all with zero energy.
I am the most helpful when I am, you know, helping within my gifts.
Yes.
You know?
And how would you say, so for anybody listening, wondering, well, I don't necessarily know my gifts yet, or what are my gifts, or I do think we can overcomplicate that, but what would you say to somebody who's trying to figure out what are they gifted at? What is something that they, you know, maybe they're in a job right now and they're like, I know this isn't what I'm supposed to do the rest of my life, but I also don't know what I'm supposed to be doing with the rest of my life. What would you say about that? Like,
well, I think we focus a lot on like our weaknesses and what we don't think we're very good at, but we are all good at stuff. And we get better at stuff and we get better at different stuff. So, I mean, what do you love doing? What do people come to you for? You know? And then, you know, there's spiritual gifts. You know, and those can change over time too and grow, you know, and you can take an online test for that, you know? So, I mean, I think you just look around at your life and it's like, you know, when do people call on me versus, you know, calling on my husband, you know, like we have very different gifts. People come to me for one thing and they come to him him for something else.
Yeah.
And we don't really want anything to do with what the other person is
Yeah.
dealing with because we're not gifted in that area.
Yep.
And so, I mean, I think you just have to do an inventory. Like, take a look.
Yeah.
Look around.
And I would like, what brings you that natural joy? But I also think too, our gifts, if we're not careful and we overload ourselves, those gifts are just muddied. And I think, yeah, like this last, I genuinely, guys, I genuinely just love serving and caring for people and coming alongside people. I've been that way since, I don't ever remember not being that way. It's it's literally my DNA.
Yes.
But this last year and a half, I did so much. I put so much on my plate, all with good intention. All with good intention.
Yeah. All good things too, I'm sure.
Yes. Yeah. And it burnt me out so bad that now when somebody's needing to talk to me about something that they're like really going through and it's real rough, I'm so mentally drained, not by them, not by what they're saying.
You're coming to it drained.
Yeah. I'm coming to it drained, that my gift is no longer...
You got nothing.
Yeah. Like I can't even use my gift because I don't want to say the word killed it, but like I took the light out of my gift by doing too much with my gift.
Absolutely. We've got to balance.
Yes.
We can't forget about ourselves.
Yep.
You know, it's not selfish. Like you can't pour from an empty cup.
No.
And a gift like that takes a lot of emotional and mental energy.
Yep.
And so we have to set boundaries around that. Just because there's an opportunity doesn't mean that's for us right now.
Yes.
We're not the only one with that gift. And if we're meant to do it, then, you know, we'll have the energy to do that. But we have to safeguard that.
Yeah.
I mean, boundaries is important. If you've been doing a lot of that, you need to back off. I'm going to tell you, when I quit working for a while, like nobody could find me.
Really?
Like,
just resting.
Yeah. I mean, I leaned into that whole COVID because I'm like, I got nothing.
Yeah.
Like, I just going to need a break from all of this, you know?
Did you struggle with being in a calm state, a calm season? Like, okay, I guess an example would be, I am used to going 100 miles an hour. I'm just used to it. And now that I've forced myself into a season where I'm letting go of a lot so that I can just heal from burnout. I can bring that light back into my gifts. It's almost like I'm having like panic attacks. It's like my body's like, Megan, this isn't normal. This isn't normal.
Isn't enough. It's not enough. It's not enough. Yeah.
So is that normal?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what can we do then? Like when our heart starts racing?
Well, I think we fill that space with things that are good for us.
Yeah.
Not doing things, not being anything for anybody else.
Yeah.
But to take a minute and to, speak life to ourselves and to take a breath and to, breathe and to just relax our muscles and to figure out what is going on with me. Why am I so anxious? What is it that I feel like I need to be doing that I'm not doing? That's kind of what got us to the place where we get where we're so burnt out, so fill it with something positive.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be stuff. I mean, if you need to be active, go for a walk, go exercise, meditate, read scripture, talk to somebody that you can really connect with and be honest with. Those are things that fill us up, and so we've got to learn what fills us up because we forgot to even pay attention to any of that. We know a couple of things that we like, but we don't know what really fills us up, and we're certainly not spending enough time doing the filling because we're always doing the pouring.
Yes.
And that doesn't work for long. It's not sustainable.
No. And I will say though, it has gotten better. Like it's been a few weeks, but in the beginning it really was. I was like, what is happening? Yeah. And I researched it, and it is very true that your body it's so used to being in a state of fast pace and like constant that when it does when you do force it to calm down and you're not filling it with things that are making you're not going 100 miles an hour, it does like shock it almost.
And I think we're taught like busy is good,
but
busy is not good.
No.
Sometimes we're all busy, but like just to have a life of busyness, just to be doing enough, that's a lie.
No,
you know, that
yes.
doesn't work. And you know, it takes our brain a while to catch up. You know, it doesn't learn from one trial of doing something different. Those neural pathways are deep when we've been doing the same thing over and over and over. And so we got to do something different. We got to tolerate the uncomfortable feelings that come when we're doing something different until we can start to teach ourselves, see, this is okay. The world didn't fall apart. You know?
I think right now my brain is learning, and I'm trying to tell my brain, you do not have to do everything. Like, that's what it is. It's in a constant, it's so used to, oh yeah, I can do that. I can do that. Oh, I feel strongly about this. Now I have to do something for it. It's like a strong sense of justice. And so I'm constantly like, okay, now we got to, you know?
Yes.
And I'm like trying to like rewire my brain to accept a stillness as normal.
Yeah.
And it is what you just
said.
We
lose track of ourselves if we don't take time for stillness.
Yeah.
I mean, all of that busyness, we don't know how we feel. We don't know what we think about that. We don't know. I mean, we just are on autopilot. And then we crash and burn.
Yeah.
You know, then we're not doing anything.
Yeah.
So that wasn't really a very solid plan.
No.
So now we try to just readjust and we take time to be still and see what's going on. There's a lot of things that are important to us. They're not all meant for us. They're not all meant for us at this very moment in time.
Yeah.
You know, we can't do everything. We don't need to do everything.
Yeah. And we're not, like, even in the Bible, Jesus rested, and people, like, when they would say that to me, I was like, yeah, I know, great, haha. But no, like, for real, he did. Like, he did rest.
And he told us that as an example.
Yeah.
You know, it's okay, and it's necessary. It's necessary. You're never going to feel very fulfilled. You're never going to feel that joy or peace or contentment if you don't take time to rest and to be still.
And I'm going to go back before we move on to the next thing. I just want to go back and reiterate what Tifini said about that framework. I really do like that framework, finding the three things, whether that filled you, that you loved, that gave you joy. Yeah. And just
anything like that. I just asked myself a series of questions. You know, what do I love? What brings me joy? When do I feel most alive? You know, and just to come up with some themes.
And just like sitting and really thinking on that. And
I'm like, oh, that's why I love to do this. And then there's like a million different ways to do each of those things within those categories. And so when you need to be filled up, it's also a good roadmap for where to go.
Yeah, I really like that. Okay, so navigating shifts in identity. What are some, like, whenever women, they tie their worth to productivity and roles. They tie their worth to what they're doing. Or I will say, and I'm speaking from, I know you guys know that I do all this stuff, but I was a stay-at-home mom for 12 years. So Eli's 15, Ellie's 12, Ethan's 8. So I would say like probably 10 or 12 years, I guess. I was a stay-at-home mom. I don't know. I'm losing count. But I was a stay-at-home mom, and I struggled sometimes. I will say not all the time. But there were times like when Daniel, he's in finance, and he would just be getting like all these awards and promotions. And
there's
like,
not a lot of awards we get at stay-at-home moms. There should be.
Puke and poop, maybe some like.
I mean, I guess, there are, but they don't come in the form of a check or a statue.
No. And so I will say this. So I do want to say this before I kind of get into the things that I'm trying to normalize for you guys. But I really did. I loved it. I loved my kids. I would never take it back. I would never change it. I encourage people, when your kids are young, there is a lot of value to being a stay-at-home mom. So like, when I say some of the things I'm about to say about how it was hard in some ways, I want you to know, like, I genuinely loved it.
Yes.
But there is and
we can love things and it can still be hard.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Both things can be true.
Yes. And so Daniel, but like as a stay-at-home mom, you know, Daniel, he just was moving up so quickly in the company and all the things. And I just was like, I know I have potential beyond this. I know there's so, you know, like I'm a visionary. And that was hard. It was hard to go, I feel like I'm not utilizing my full potential. But it also was a season, and it was a season, you know, and that was hard. But after a while, I did start branching out, and I started doing the things. And I mentioned on another episode, Daniel was like, you took a back seat while I built my career, and now it's my turn to take a back seat while you build yours. And he has done that. He has taken over laundry. He has taken over cooking. Guys, I don't remember the last time I have cooked. And honestly,
go Daniel.
I know. And I don't think my family wants me to. It's either spaghetti or tacos. That's all I know.
Those are good.
I know.
Hey, yeah.
You want a cheesecake? I will make a mean cheesecake.
Oh, I do.
But anyway, so he really has stepped up so that I can do all of everything I'm doing and growing in all the ways and stuff. But tying your worth to productivity, tying your worth to what you're doing, what you're not doing, that's hard. And so how would you encourage women through that season? What would your thoughts be on that?
I think we have to really understand where worth comes from.
Yeah.
Because it's an internal job.
Yes.
It doesn't come from things we do. It doesn't come from, the highs and lows of life or the roles that we play. It's an inherent sense of feeling like we're worthy of love and belonging, that we're enough.
Yeah.
And I think we get confused about that.
Yes.
And we start to have all of these external things happen, and it affects our self-esteem, but our worth needs to be solid. And there's not everybody has a solid sense of worth. Sometimes early on people were given the message, implicitly or explicitly that they weren't worthy.
Yeah.
So sometimes that's the work we've got to do as an adult, because everything we're doing comes out of not feeling worthy enough. But we all are.
Yeah.
We're already worthy. Everyone is worthy of love and worthy of belonging.
Yes, I agree. And I would, even, women who are working and then feel like tying their worth to not being home with their kids.
My goodness. Yeah.
That's hard.
It's hard both ways.
Yes.
It's just hard.
Yeah, it is. And, for women, this was mentioned on another episode, and I'm going to mention it again just in case you guys don't listen to every episode, but they're so cruel to each other.
Oh, absolutely.
They're so cruel to each other.
We're all so insecure.
Yes.
We're all so insecure.
Yes.
It's like, in order to validate in my mind what I'm doing, sometimes I can be harsh on somebody that's making a different choice. And it's not even about them. It's about me.
Yes. But you have the ability to recognize that. I have the ability to recognize that. And I've gone to people and been like, what I just did, and I have said that was not you. That was me, and
yes,
me, needing to and acknowledging that. But we can be so hard on each other, and working moms can, in order to validate the fact that they're working, be hard on the stay-at-home moms. And
I think women are meanest to women.
Yes, and the stay-at-home moms, to validate what they're feeling low on, they're gonna point fingers at the moms who are working and say, well, their kids are bad because they're working 40 hours.
Right.
Or they just have a kid who's struggling. You know what I mean?
Right.
And it has nothing to do with the parent.
Everybody always tries to boil things down to, well, this causes this, and I'm not doing that. So, you know.
And I know some kids that don't have good behaviors and their moms do stay at home. So I would say it's not,
I know kids that have some really bad behaviors, and they come from the best families.
Yes.
They've had every opportunity.
Yes.
It's not so simple.
Yes.
If only it were.
Yeah.
But it's not. It's complicated.
It's not. And it is so easy. And you hit the nail on the head when you just said, in order to justify something that we are feeling, we will create a scenario in our head or a thought or whatever about somebody, and that's exactly what it is. It's exactly what it is. And we are so, I do it. I mean, and if anybody tells me that they don't, then
we all do it.
Yeah. Don't listen to my show, because
you're not going to like what you hear.
So yeah, it is. And I think tying worth to that. And then I said the other day, I'd like to know your thought on this. So I read a research thing, and it said the brain accepts a thought as truth through repetition and reinforcement.
Yeah.
And so when we are tying our worth to to titles that we have or titles that we don't have, titles that we want, or worth to our circumstance and it not being what we want. It's not at the level we want it, or it's not the situation that we want it, and we're tying our worth to that. We have the ability to change that thought.
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
But it comes with repetition.
Yeah.
So we've got to figure out, what are those thoughts? What are we feeding ourselves? You know, like, what are these bad things we're saying? What we're only worthy if, like, all these external things happen that we have no control over to a large extent. You know, that's not very solid ground. But you're absolutely right. What we feed our brain is how we grow.
Yeah.
And I know from doing therapy with people, people say terrible things that they're not even aware of what they're saying until they say it out loud in the room with me. And then they're like, oh, that sounds terrible when I say it out loud. We need to know what we're feeding ourselves because we believe it.
Yeah.
But we can feed ourselves truth.
Yes.
And more positive things. Now, it's not going to happen after one trial. We got to keep doing it.
Like a muscle.
It is. And repetition is the key. And it's also a key. You're not going to immediately feel better. That doesn't mean it's not working.
Yeah.
That's just how the brain works.
Yeah. Well, and too, if you don't feel better immediately, it doesn't mean, you know, just like the muscle. I mean, you know that every time you work out, something's happening. And I don't know if you're like an alien. I've never seen a muscle just pop up out of nowhere after the first time.
Right.
And so it is like that. It's like working that muscle and knowing that every time you take your protein drink, and every time you do the workout, something is happening inside that arm or leg or whatever.
There's not a quick fix, but the fix that comes from doing what you need to do over and over and over is the lasting change that you've been looking for.
Which I think, too, goes back to surrounding yourself with the right people.
Yes.
You know, pruning, okay, looking and evaluating who are your people. And one of the things, I say this often, one of the ways that I build my people when I am growing is I will evaluate what are my weaknesses, and I will search out people. I will look for people. Tiffany and I had this conversation actually because I was like, Tiffany, I would love to, after the podcast, continue because Tiffany has different strengths that I'm like, I want to lean into that, you know? And so I'll seek out the strengths in people where I am weak, and I'll say, hey, can we just meet every now and then and become friends? And it's not even like it has to be a rhythmic meeting. It's just, hey, can we get coffee every now and then? Because the more you're around those people who are strong where you are weak, the better off you're going to become and the more you're going to grow. And then too, I think naturally, because earlier we were talking about how do you break ties with those people? Well, I think as you're hanging out and becoming friends with people who are putting you in a growth trajectory, it's just organically going to start happening. And you don't even have to be mean to those people and cut it off. You can just be like, oh, well, I'm with so-and-so today.
Yeah. And
you know,
it's
it
not
just
good for them
happens.
either.
Yeah.
Yeah. They don't like it either.
No.
You know?
Yeah.
So
it's
some
like
of it naturally kind of prunes itself.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's actually really impressive that you do that.
Oh, yeah.
Because I think a lot of people, that would make them very insecure. It's like, I don't want to be around people that I feel like are able to do the things that I feel like I struggle with. So that's a really super good way.
I appreciate that. As a high achiever, I will take that compliment.
I'm impressed. I'm impressed.
Yeah, no, I don't like to, but I'm also, it's from a healthy place and an unhealthy place because I don't like to, I'm hard on myself. So that would be the unhealthy place it comes from, is I'm hard on myself. And so I'm always trying to get better. I've had to learn, and still not great at it, to give myself grace.
Yeah.
And so most of it is from a healthy place. Some of it is like, Megan, you have to keep getting better. You have to keep getting better.
That's always the way that it is. Don't we have to like keep things in check? Because even something that's good in excess becomes bad.
Yes.
You know, and that could easily turn into like comparison,
Yes.
which is the thief of joy.
Yes. Or it also manifests into being hard on the people around you, going, why aren't you growing at the level? And well, because not everybody has to do it not everybody's as hard on themselves, and so it's like
everybody's on their own path and their own trajectory.
Yes. And so
they may be growing, just not in ways we recognize, because it's not the same ways we're growing.
Yes. I thank you for saying that. That's actually really good perspective. Because just because I have this expectation on me doesn't mean that I have to put the expectation on everybody else, which I struggle with. I do that sometimes.
Yeah.
I whisper that like you guys didn't hear me, but I do. And so, but I also, like we're talking, like I'm very big on self-awareness and evaluating.
I recognize that too. Like when there's something specific that I'm really struggling with and I'm really working hard at it, I could be critical of other, and I'm just like, this is my issue.
I know.
This is all me.
I know.
Like,
yes.
But I mean, it happens.
Yeah.
It happens.
It's
So,
a thing. Yeah. So I would say my encouragement to you guys in that is, don't be so hard on everybody just because you're hard on yourself. That's something that I have to learn. And I'm with you in that.
I have to say, we have to give ourselves grace.
Yes.
And we know how to do it because we do it with other people.
Yes.
We know how to speak to ourselves. We know how to comfort ourselves. We know how to encourage ourselves because we do it with other people. And we mean it.
Yep.
When we say it, don't we?
Yep.
Like when they struggle, when they mess up, we mean what we say to them when we're encouraging and we give them grace.
Yes.
But we don't do that to ourselves.
No. I don't know why that is. Why
we
is
have
that?
the skills. We don't think that we do, but we do. We're doing it all the time with everybody else.
Yeah.
So it's important to be that way for ourselves too.
Yeah. There's somebody told me, now I will say, like, I don't know enough about this to anyway, so like don't send me a message or something and be like, Megan, that's actually really that's not good to do. But I have done it, and it's like that inner child healing and talking to like the younger you. Yeah. And just in different situations. Absolutely. And being like, in the time that you needed somebody maybe. Yeah. And just talking to that younger you and going, you know what, it's okay, I'm here now. And like,
because she's still in there.
Yes.
And she acts for us sometimes.
Yes.
Because it's like, what am I doing? I'm a grown woman. I've got a doctorate. I've got a beautiful, like, why am I scared?
Yeah.
Why am I scared?
Yeah.
It's because that little girl is still in me.
Yes.
And she was hypervigilant. She was over alert. She was looking around to make sure everybody was happy. And if they weren't, try to intervene, like end conflict, like, because she's still in there. And I feel bad for her. She shouldn't have had to feel that way. And she doesn't have to feel that way anymore. Like, I can do this. I can take care of this. And I'm sorry that was her experience, and nobody ever said, honey, this is not your job. You can't control all of these adults around you. You know? So I don't know why there would be anything wrong with just empathizing with ourselves and giving ourselves grace and just permission to just like let it down every now and then.
I think that's kind of why everything's happening, but I don't think I've ever, one, there's twofold. Everything that happens, I don't take time to celebrate it because I'm always going, okay, what can be done better? What can I be doing? Like, how can I be? It's like, speaking. I don't take time to celebrate those wins and those things because I'm always going, okay, what could I have done better in that engagement? What do I need to be doing now? And so I don't take that time to pause. But I think too, the thing that whenever people compliment or say something nice, it catches me off guard only because my inner child is healing and I still don't see some of the way you guys see me. I still don't see that yet.
Yes.
And that's very, very real with you guys. Very real. Like there is, I am still doing a lot of work to heal a lot of wounds and a lot of hurt. And so when it keeps me humble, I'll say that. Like I can't, it's hard for me. But it is like, and I want to encourage you guys, like when you see people doing things, it's not because they've made it. It's just because they're doing
never
it.
Make it.
Yeah.
We're always just heading towards whatever that goal is.
Like I'm in this
growing
life journey with you guys.
Yeah.
Like all I'm doing is taking the tools and perspective that I keep learning along the way and sharing it with you guys.
Yeah.
But I'm in this journey with you guys. Yes, I don't know I don't think we'll ever make it. And
I hope not.
Yeah.
I don't think we're meant to be just stagnant and like, oh, we've achieved it.
Yeah.
Like, I hope I continue to grow and move forward and learn things forever.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think it's important to celebrate those little things.
Yes, it is.
That's how we prevent burnout. That's how we celebrate that.
Yeah.
You would celebrate your children's accomplishments.
Yes, I would.
So treat yourself the same way.
I know. It's things I'm such a fast-paced person. I just am. I'm like, okay, on to the next thing, on to the next thing. I don't pause. And I don't know if that's like like just how I'm wired. I don't know, to be honest with you. But I do know some of it is because I am still working on myself and I am still healing. And I want you guys to hear that. Like, I really want you guys to hear that so that, like, because one of the things that we can be hard on ourselves is like, why am I not over this yet? Why have I not this yet? It's just a journey. It's just a journey. And
it makes you who you are.
Yes.
Good comes from that too.
It does.
Good comes from
Y'all
pain.
wonder where my empathy comes from?
Yeah.
You wonder? Like,
absolutely.
It does. Like there is. Yes.
Yes.
I agree. Okay. So navigating, we're moving into this one. This one just is like a perfect transition. Navigating anxiety and stress in a fast-paced world and how to break free. So how can we break free from chronic stress and anxiety cycles? From like what we mentioned a little bit ago, we've entered this time of, okay, I'm not working at Big Brothers, you stepped out of, and now our bodies are like, what is happening? So what are some techniques and tools outside of breathing, outside, how can we break free from that? We've already talked about, finding some things we love. We've already normalized the fact that, okay, it's normal for our bodies to have panic attacks because it is getting used to a totally different...
We're changing it up.
Yeah,
that's
totally
not what we normally do.
Yeah.
Alarm bells go off.
Yes. Yeah. But how can we... Or not just slow pace, people who are in fast pace, people who don't have the ability to slow down, they're in the hustle and it just is what it is.
Yeah.
What are some things that they can do to help that chronic stress and anxiety?
Well, I think some of them we've already talked about in different respects. I mean, I think it's important to slow down periodically. You run faster than me. That's perfectly fine. You get a lot more done than me. I have to accept that because I'm not made like you are.
Yeah.
But we all need to slow down sometimes. I may need to slow down a little bit more just to figure out what all is going on with me. Sometimes I feel weird.
Yeah.
Sometimes I feel bad. And I don't even know what that is.
Yeah.
And it just builds up and you just keep pushing forward and pushing forward and pushing forward, but nothing really ever goes away or gets resolved. It just gets piled up. So I think to take a break and be like, what is going on with my mind right now? What's going on with my body? What's going on with my mind?
What are some of the physical symptoms of chronic stress?
Oh, tension.
Yeah.
Shallow breathing.
Yeah.
Headaches.
So wait, me walking up the stairs being out of breath, is it stress?
It could be because you're not breathing very deeply most of the time.
I saw Tiffany at the basketball game last night and I was like,
that's what we're going to say
Tiffany.
It is. Yeah, that or maybe more cardio. Yeah. I don't know. I'm always out of breath, but I breathe shallowly when I get nervous.
Yes, me too.
And people that used to be in my office, didn't believe me when I was like, I know this is frustrating to a fast-paced person. Slow down, breathe, and pay attention to your body. I know that makes you mad.
Yeah.
Like, that's really hard to do. I totally get it. I know it's, but you're holding your breath right now.
Yeah.
So many people just hold their breath or just breathe so shallowly, and those muscles in your face and your neck and your shoulders, that's all sending signals to your brain that's promoting the cycle of anxiety. Okay. And then, what are your thoughts? Like we talked about, what are you saying to yourself?
Yeah.
Dump some of that stuff out. What are you worried about? There's a whole bunch of noise in our minds, a whole bunch of noise. And if you can dump it out and you can look at it, you can be like, oh yeah, I guess I'm worried about this. Yeah. But maybe it's not that big of a deal. Like I've got it. And then it goes away. Yeah. Or I am really worried about this. Is there something I can do about that right now? Or is that something that I just kind of have to tolerate right now? Or it's just like this. I mean, you sort and you sift and you prioritize, but you know what's there. So you can do things about things you need to be doing something about, and you can let go of some of the things that you can't do anything about, but where you're at again. And that, those thoughts are really important. You can't let those negative, harsh, critical. Maybe it's something somebody said to you in the past, or maybe it's just something that you're doing to yourself because you're a perfectionist or you never feel like you're doing it good enough and you're really just trying to push yourself. We wouldn't push our kids that way, but we do it to ourselves. But a lot of it is just under the awareness of consciousness. So we have to identify that stuff and we've got to change it.
I wonder, okay, so is that why, like when you're going super fast paced, you don't have time to think. You don't have time to, when you do slow down, it's not just a panic of your body's like, hey, what's happening? But all this stress that you suppressed.
It's been building. It's still there.
And so then you get the physical symptoms.
Yeah. And sometimes being busy is a defense mechanism against looking at any of that stuff. It just doesn't work.
Yeah.
I mean, it works like for a little bit, but then it really doesn't work in a big way. But then it's
like, then your body starts the physical symptoms.
Yeah.
You don't know what was suppressed to even like grab onto it.
Yeah. You got to dump it out.
Yeah. And then it's almost like that kind of is scarier though, because you're like, what's happening to my body all of a sudden? And you don't know what to pinpoint, which I think causes the panic to be worse because now you're like, am I having a stroke? Like, but it's just anxiety sometimes.
Yeah. And sometimes you can just work on the body part of it.
Yeah.
You know?
So how would you do that?
If you can regulate your breathing and relax your muscles, you're going to send different signals to your brain.
Okay.
You're not going to stop a panic attack and sometimes you're deep into it.
Yeah.
And you just got to ride it out. Like a wave at that point. But it's not going to last forever.
Yeah.
It's uncomfortable. It's not going to hurt you. And you get better at preventing them ahead of time. But everybody is always so scared to like dump out the contents of what's in there.
Yes.
But it's nothing scary, really. I've never had anybody in 20 years say something that scared them.
Yeah.
They know it. It's not like we don't know it. It's just in a big messy pile. So it's like, let's just take a couple things off of this overpacked shelf that is our mind because things are starting to fall off. Like, just look, journal it, write it, talk it to a friend, just get it out of there. You're going to find out a lot of it's just clutter. A lot of it doesn't matter, but it was just the quantity of it that was like suffocating you and bringing the walls in. And there'll be a couple of things that maybe you are stressed about, but now that we can see them clearly and we've freed up some space, what can we do to take a step towards managing that?
Okay, I'm going to ask this and you may have to help me with the wording. So is it possible that thoughts we are keeping in because we are afraid to dump them out, is it possible that holding them in is causing more anxiety and stress because it's like the fear of the unknown?
Yes.
And so then so that's actually hurting us.
Yes.
By not putting it out.
We avoid it because that's everybody's go-to response for anxiety is avoidance. And avoidance makes anxiety worse.
And so it's like the brain actually registering it as, because we're holding it in and going, I don't want this to come out, I don't want this to come out. Is the brain registering it in some way unhealthy? And then we get it out. See, you're going to have to help me word this.
Well, there's thoughts associated with all of this.
Okay.
We just may not be completely aware of it. And that's what cognitive behavioral therapy does. It helps you find the thoughts that are running through your head. And when you have these thoughts, your body responds. And your body is sending stress signals. And so then there comes a point when we're like, the only thing active in our brain is like the amygdala and like the emotional parts. So our frontal lobe is no longer working, and that's our executive function. That's how we like organize, make rational decisions, think logically. We don't really have access to that.
Okay, and
so how do we solve problems when we're fully like in this overactive emotional brain, but then we're telling ourselves, nope, don't stop, don't look at that, don't look at that. Like it feels scary, we don't know what it is, so don't look. But the truth is, like, we're just running in this cycle of anxiety that if we would stop, dump it out, it's not scary. It's just a bunch. It's a bunch of stuff. And maybe we'll find something we don't know what to do with right now, but we can deal with that. We can sort through all of that and we can deal with that. And, once we dump it out, we can problem solve things better and we can calm down, use our frontal lobe again. We can ask for help for a tangible problem that we've identified.
That's
and
so
somebody else
interesting.
can use their frontal lobe and
Yeah.
they could be like, well, why don't you just do this to begin with? And we're like, I can't believe I didn't think of that.
Yeah.
It's because our brain wasn't working right.
So interesting.
We get all spun up and
Yeah.
then we can't function effectively. And then we get anxious about not functioning effectively. And so we push even harder. And that's the cycle that we have to interrupt.
Okay. And we interrupt it by getting our thoughts out, breathing. Is there anything else?
And
Taking a walk?
identifying what those thoughts are and
Okay.
replacing them
Okay.
with thoughts that are more accurate,
Yes.
more encouraging.
Yeah. How would you, like, what would you say to somebody on how to do that? Like, what does that look like? Writing, okay, so here's my negative thought, and then writing a positive thought, like, double the amount of times. Like, that's a terrible example. I guess what I'm like,
No, I know what you're
would
saying.
how would somebody replace that? Because, like, in my mind, sometimes it's, well, yeah, I want to replace it with something, but the negative thought is trying to overpower.
And it will.
Yes.
And you got to do it a million times.
Yes,
and it's
so-
got to be the right thing. And you may have to do some trial and error.
Yeah.
You know, because it's got to be true. You have to believe it. It may not be as powerful as the negative thought, but it has to be true, not just something you're telling yourself that sounds good. Like, you have to believe it.
Yeah.
And it has to be, you know, more encouraging or just more realistic. You know, if you look online, you can see like a whole list of like cognitive distortions. That would probably help you to categorize kind of where your thought is and then give you like a framework. Well, if this is the, you know, if I tend to catastrophize and like just assume the absolute worst, like
I do that. Whenever Daniel doesn't
We-
come home right
yeah.
away, I'm like,
I
911.
do too. I do too. I'm like, okay, well, Life 360 hasn't shown me where my daughter is for 5 seconds. You know, maybe there's a
Yes.
ditch. Like, how do I know? Calm down, calm down, calm down. You know, and I do
Yes.
spin up sometimes. And I know that I do that, but I know what my distortions are.
Yeah.
And when I am stressed and when I get anxious, that's what I go to. Very black and white thinking, catastrophic thinking. There's just a whole bunch of them. And we all do them.
Yeah.
But if we know what the name is, it's easier to catch them
Yes.
because we're like, I'm doing that. And then if we know what it is, like if it's black and white thinking, we try to find something that's maybe more realistic, that's
Yeah.
in the middle. It's not worst case scenario. It's not best case scenario, but this is more likely where things are
Yeah.
going to fall because I can handle that.
Yes.
I'm
Yeah.
not going to freak out over that.
Yeah.
You know? So I think it's easier to do that if you know kind of what your distortions tend to be.
Yeah.
Because when you know there's a name for it, one, you recognize it as foreign and unhelpful. Otherwise, we just think that's the way I think.
Yeah.
And that prevents a lot of disaster from happening. That's
Right.
anxiety talking.
Yeah.
That's not actually true
Yeah.
at all. You're just ruining your peace of the presence,
Yeah.
forecasting a super scary future that's spooking yourself.
Yeah.
You know, so it doesn't work. But I think if we know what the names are and we understand what we're doing, we can catch that thought, take it captive, and then the answer is the balance to that.
That's good. I am going to, this has been so good. And I told Tiffany the other day, I said, Tiffany, there is a chance we're going to have to do 2 episodes because there is so much that we actually want to talk about. And we didn't even hit all of it. We hit about half of it for you guys because, and I knew this, I told you whenever we had coffee, I said, Tiffany, you and I talk, we just naturally just have great conversations. So I know that it's going to do that. And it did. And I'm so glad it did because I'm excited to bring on the rest of it in another episode for
Okay.
our listeners.
We could do it.
So what would you say over what we've talked about today? What is one encouragement you would give our listeners and one practical tool? Like, if anything, out of anything, what would be the most important encouragement and tool you would give?
I would say, remember, you're already worthy. You're not what you do. You're not what people say about you. You're not the roles that you play. You're already worthy. And you're loved and you're enough. And treat yourself like that. Treat yourself like you treat people that you love.
Yeah.
And see what difference that makes
Yeah.
in how you feel and in what you can put out then.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't pour from an empty cup. Fill yourself up. It's not selfish.
Yeah.
It's necessary.
Yeah. And I love that you just gave them permission for it not to be selfish.
It isn't selfish.
Yeah.
I think that's what we're taught.
Yes.
It's not. It's the only way it works. It's the
Yes.
only way it works. And there are biblical examples of that. You can't give what you don't have.
Yeah.
And you got to safeguard that and set some boundaries. And, don't judge your worth based upon how others respond to you. Just be honest with yourself. Say, did I do the best that I could? Was that the best way I knew how to say that? Acknowledge when you're wrong and you move on.
Yeah.
But give yourself grace.
Yeah. That's so good. Tifini, thank you for coming on and sharing and giving us your insights. And I'm excited we'll have you back on.
Okay. It was fun. Thank you.
All right.